previous generations is not forgotten. I've thought in recent times that being a boomer and 1954 baby, I'm one of the last of a generation that remembers a time of the kind of solidarity and sacrifice, not that I lived through the war or the Depression, but my parents did. And so the family stories become part of who you are. They're in your bones. The notion that government steps up, that government is on your side. And I think through years of neoliberalism, we've gotten this idea that government's kind of in our way, picking our pocket. I'm really relieved that in some ways, this solidarity, the social solidarity that we will have coming out of this pandemic will allow us to see, yeah, I'm part of my government. My democracy works for me. I hope that can be a lasting lesson. We are here together in a way that I want to acknowledge with deep gratitude. Is Parliament working well even when we're at a distance? I want to thank Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and so many different ministers for the openness to hear opposition ideas and concerns. If I could share with Canadians what the last couple of weeks have felt like, working from home nonstop, 24/7. A lot of Canadians wouldn't imagine that every single day, 1:30 BC time, 4:30 in Ottawa, every day including Saturdays and Sundays, we have an opportunity to ask anything. Now, in my mind, this is how the ideas have been working. It's quite true that a lot of the things we wanted weren't in the first bill in C-13. It's quite true that Greens, like others, said it shouldn't be a 10% wage subsidy. It should be 75%. We made that case, and individual examples came forward. It feels to me as though through those daily question and answer sessions, and I know not every single day do all of us get our questions in. Some of us, the member for Carleton, does well. I do pretty well. Push *1 and go for it. We do our best to get our questions out there. But in my head, this is how it's been working. We raise a question. We say something like, what happens right now? Bishop McMenemy has just contacted me, and the Anglican Church on Vancouver Island has separate churches, and they all have their own CRA number, but there's only one employer. So the 30% wage, 30% revenue deduction, 30% reduction in revenue compared to some other reference period doesn't work at all in this circumstance. Then today, I look at the most recent version of the bill. Entity is redefined. It now covers that specific weird example of the Anglican diocese and an issue raised.
It's 23 hours.
There may have been many other MPs who asked a question that stumped the Finance Canada senior officials that were on the telephone with us every single day. But when I see that in the bill, I think, oh, my question not only was a question, it flagged an issue. And this is what I hear from ministers. Keep sending us the specific concerns that you see. Keep telling us where the gaps are. Because the MPs on the ground right across Canada are the eyes and ears on the front line, able to say, nothing you've got in place right now, with all due respect, is working for small business. I'm terrified that a lot of very small businesses, seasonal businesses, restaurants and so on, are going to go under even with the wage subsidies. But then I pick up today's unanimous consent motion. Well, I saw it before coming here, and I'm very relieved to see that it calls for the government to implement short-term support measures for medium and small and medium-sized enterprises to be partially refundable, primary objective, maintaining jobs, reducing the debt related to fixed costs. I'm just finishing Lent, a period of fasting and reflection. And it speaks to the unprecedented nature of the crisis that we're in, that as far as I've been able to determine through research from home and looking through every bit of constitutional and parliamentary history I can find, the Parliament of Canada has never before sat on Easter Saturday. Good Friday, particularly in previous generations, was held sacred. The idea of meeting on Easter weekend would have been impossible to imagine. But here we are. And why? In about, looking at the clock, I think, in about 10 hours, it will be dawn in Jerusalem. And the first morning light of that sunrise will strike the walls of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that's built on the spot where we are told the original cave was, in which the body of Jesus Christ was wrapped and placed in the tomb, the rock rolled in front of it, and that approximately 10 hours from now at dawn will be that remembrance of our stories, of our tradition, our faith, the most significant day, the most profound and important day of a Christian calendar, the resurrection of Christ, that the stone was rolled back, and that those who loved him, Mary and others, came and thought the body had been stolen, and the angels came to them, and then Jesus, disguised as a gardener, came to them and said, "No, he is risen." Now, in this time when we are surrounded by death, and we are worried about our mortality, and those of the people we love, we can think of the things that are most important. And after this is over, we'll recognize, yes, we can survive. We can break the bonds of death. We can have faith in each other. We can invest ourselves in love for each other and our communities. We can remember what really matters. And right now, as I watch my grandkids on Zoom family chats, what would I give for a hug? I would love to think about our lives as transformed by this in ways that are profound, as we recognize that for the first time in my life, governments all around the world have decided without a hesitation, life is more important than money. We have deliberately and voluntarily shut down our economies to save lives. We have deliberately and voluntarily created for ourselves as lawmakers and as policymakers the challenge of an economic recovery because we didn't hesitate to know that saving life is more important than money. And when this is all over, and please God, it's over with a minimum loss of life in Canada and all around the world, particularly worried for those countries that lack basic health care. We mustn't forget our obligations to the poorest of the poor, just as we don't forget Indigenous peoples in Canada, just as we don't forget those who are most marginalized, homeless. But when we get through this together, let's remember that in this pandemic, we discovered what really matters.